Greetings, and I'm here to introduce my group members that are assigned in our method. So for the main that has a parameter of string and args, I, James Peralta, is going to present. Greetings, for the main method, we first call the two methods, which is the initialize available services and initialize dummy data. And we also have here a do while to print the main menu, and that's the user choose between these three. So when the user types an invalid number, it will print this error message. So let's try it. So here's the menu. Let's try to input 4. Let's try input 1. So you can see the invalid choice here on the default statement is printed. And try 1. So you can see that it shows the dentist module menu. Let's try the 2. It also shows the client's module menu. Okay. There's also error handling. And let's try manage transactions. When the user choose the number 3, it will show the transaction module menu. Then print main menu. Jillian Tabagana is going to present.
So print main menu is used to show the main menu on the screen. It uses the system print to print the title, which is the main menu, and the far option, which are the manage dentist, manage client, manage transaction, and the access system. The method only prints these choices so the user can see what they can do.
Manage dentist and print dentist module menu. Jewel Segundo is going to present.
For the print dentist menu module, so this acts like a menu screen for the dentist section of the program. When we run this, it simply displays a numbered list of commands on the console. It also provides the user with a clear set of options to navigate through different tasks like adding, updating, or archiving dentist record. So, and to show the available buttons so the user knows what to type next. Discuss the manage dentist. So it creates a simple interactive menu for managing a list of dentists. So when we run it, it shows a list of options on the screen and asks the user to pick a number from 0 to 7. Depending on the number chosen, the program can add a new dentist, update information, or even move records to an archive list. So it uses a loop so that the menu keeps popping back after each task is finished, allowing user to do multiple things in one go. If user accidentally types a wrong number, the program gently says invalid choice and asks them to try again. The whole process only stop when the user types 0 to exit. That's all.
And for add dentist, Jamel Rustria is going to present.
The add dentist method is responsible for adding a new dentist to the system. First, it asks the user to input the required details such as the dentist's name, address, and contact number. The system also requires a commission rate, which is a number between 0.0 and 100.0. A key part of this process is selecting a specialization. The code requires the user to choose at least one service that the dentist can perform, ensuring that every dentist in the system is qualified to work. Once all the information is collected, the method creates a new dentist object. This object is then added to the main list of dentists in the system. Finally, the program displays a success message which confirms that the new dentist was added successfully.
Update dentist by ID, archive dentist by ID. Sheena Rehio is going to present.
And I am here to demonstrate how Update Dentist by ID function works. First, when the user select Update Dentist by ID option, the program will print all the registered and active dentists. After that, the system asks for user to enter the dentist ID that they want to update. For example, we can enter 0001. The program then uses search dentist by ID method to check if the dentist with that ID exists in the system. If the dentist that doesn't exist, the system will display a message saying that the dentist was not found. If the dentist record is archived, the system will also prevent the update to protect archive records. If the record is valid, the system allows user to update dentist information like name, address, contact number, and new commission rate. The system also allows the user to leave a field blank and press enter if they want to keep the current value. Then, once the changes are saved, the system displays a message indicating that the dentist information has been successfully updated. Next, I will explain how Archive Dentist by ID function works. First, the system will print all the registered and active dentists. Then the system will ask the user to enter an ID number. Then, the system uses search dentist by ID to check if the dentist with that ID exists in the system. If the dentist ID doesn't exist, the system will print a message that the dentist with that ID is not found. And if the dentist is already archived, the system will print that the doctor with that ID is already archived. And if the system is valid, then it will set the dentist to archive to true. This means that the record will no longer appear in active list but is still stored in the system for reference. Then, lastly, it will print a confirmation message that the doctor with that ID has been archived.
An archive dentist by ID, Jimmy Segundo is going to present
dentist. So this handles the process of reactivating a dentist's record by searching for their unique employee IDs for ID. When we run the program, it asks the user to type an ID like 0001 and then looks through the list of dentists to find a match. So if the dentist is found and was previously hidden or archived, the code flips back their status to active and shows a success message with their name. So it also includes helpful checks. If the ID doesn't exist, it tells the user there's an error, and if the dentist is already active, it simply gives a notice instead of trying to change it again. So that's all.
print archive dentist table, Jillian Tabangana is going to present
Next is the print archive dentist table. So this method prints all the archive dentists in a table format. So first, it shows a message that the archive dentists are being printed and prints the table title. Then it takes a column format for employee ID, name, address, contact number, and commission rate, and prints the table header with a line for the style. So it goes through the dentist list. If a dentist list is archived, it prints their details in the table. If there are no archived dentists, it shows a message saying none are found. And finally, it prints a closing line to finish the table, making it easier for the user to see all the archived dentist information neatly. Thank you.
add skill to dentist, print registered dentist, Sheena Rehio is going to present
Next, I will demonstrate the add skill to dentist method. When the user selects this option, first, the system will print all registered and active dentists using registered and active dentist method. After that, the system asks the user to enter an ID of a dentist. Then the program uses search dentist by ID method to find the corresponding dentist record. If the system cannot find the dentist, it will display a message that the indicating dentist was not found. If the dentist record is archived, the system will prevent adding new skill because archive records are no longer active. If the dentist ID is valid and active, the system will display a list of available service or skills that can be assigned to the dentist using select service method. The system will also check if the dentist already has a selected skills to avoid duplication. If the dentist already has that skills, the system will notify the user. Otherwise, the skill will be successfully added to the dentist profile. Finally, the system displays a confirmation message showing that the skill has been successfully added. Next, I will demonstrate the print registered dentist. This method displays all the dentists stored in the system, and it also loops through the dentist list using a for each loop and print each dentist object.
print registered and active dentist, John Michael Achico is going to present
So in the method print registered and active dentist, private static void print registered. So it simply print all the registered active dentist and display message. Display the dentist that is not archive. So by using the for loop and the if conditional statement, which checks if the dentist is not archived, it will print the dentist. So that's all for the print registered and active dentist method.
Print registered dentist table, Shinari Hiyo is going to present.
I will demonstrate the print registered dentist table. This method is responsible for displaying all registered dentists in a formatted table layout. The goal is to make the information easier to read and organize. First, the system prints the table header, which includes the columns for employee ID, name, address, contact number, and commission rate, and status. To keep the table aligned, the program uses a formatted string layout with the system.out.print. Next, the system checks if the dentist list is empty. If there are no registered dentists, the program displays a message informing the user that no records are available. If there are dentists stored in the system, the program loops through the list using for each loop and print the information for each dentist. The system also converts the archive status into a readable label if the dentist is archived. Otherwise, it will display active. The commission rate is also formatted to show the 2 decimal places followed by a percent symbol to make it clearer. Finally, the system prints the closing line of the table to complete the layout.
Search dentist by ID that has a parameter of string dentist to search. John Michael Chico is going to present.
So for the search dentist by ID method, which has string parameter dentist to search, it will only traverse and search for the specific ID. If the dentist is found, it will return the dentist object. Otherwise, it will return to null, which means the ID does not exist in the list of the dentist. With the custom equals ignore case, it will perform the if statement inside the for loop, which will determine if there is or it will return the dentist after executing those if conditional statement. So that's all.
Manage clients, Jimmy Segundo is going to present.
It is similar to the dentist module or function, and it also uses a loop to keep a menu on the screen so the user can perform different tasks one after another without the program closing. So when we run it, we can choose to add new clients, view a list of everyone registered, or update their details. And it also includes archive and unarchive options, which are great for hiding old clients without permanently deleting their data. So if you type a number that isn't on the list, the program just tells you it's an invalid choice and ask again. And that's all.
Print client module menu, Jillian Tabangan is going to present.
For the next method called the print client module menu. So this method displays the menu for the client module. So when the user selects manage client from the main menu, this method runs and shows all the client related options. First, it prints the title, client module menu, and the following choices, which are the add new client, print client table, update client by ID, archive client by ID, and archive client by ID, print archive client table, and back to main menu. So this lets the user see all the available actions they can perform. Thank you.
Add client, James Peralta is going to present. Things for the add client method prefers ask the user to input all the required fields such as the client name, client address, and client contact number. And once the user successfully uh, have an input to all those fields, we make a new client instance using the scanner, or basically what they inputted on those fields. So and we add it on the list as a new client and the parameter as the new client. And there's also a successful message that will notify the user that the newly added customer is successfully added in the list. So update client by ID, Shinari is going to present.
Next, I will demonstrate how update client by ID function works in the system. First, when the user select update function option, the program display the list of registered and active client using print registered and active clients method. After that, the system will ask the user to enter the client ID that they want to update. Then the program uses the search client by ID method to check if a client with that ID exists in the system. If the client does not exist, the system will display a message saying that the client was not found. If the client record is archived, the system will also prevent the update to protect archive records. And if the record is valid, the system allows the user to update the client information including name, address, contact number, and the system also allows the user to leave a field blank and press enter if they want to keep the current value. Finally, once the changes are saved, the system displays a confirmation message indicating that the system is successfully updated.
Archive client by ID and archive client by ID, John Michael Aichico is going to present.
So here, it's simply a archive dentist that will input by the user. So inside the method, it has a message which has it says that the system is archiving a dentist. Then it will go to the method print registered and active dentist to the user to see dentist that they want to archive. And then it has the dentist ID to search to read the string input by the user, and later on it will search the specific dentist that the user wants to archive by the variable dentist to archive. After that, after that, the system will go through the conditional statement. First, if the dentist to archive is equals to null, it will print the message that the dentist with the ID, dentist ID to search, is not found, and it will return. Then, um, second, if the dentist to archive is archived, it will print the message that the system that the doctor is already archived. Then it will return. Then if the dentist to archive, then after that, if the all of those statement is false, then it will set the archive of the dentist to archive true. Then the system will show that the doctor or the dentist uh, was been successfully archived. Unarchived dentist by ID, which is which simply unarchiving the dentist by its specific ID. It prints the unarchived dentist, which will tell the users that the system is unarchiving a dentist. So it has a boolean variable has archive, which is equals to false, and a message which uh, has a archived dentist, and a for loop to show the list of the dentist. Then if the dentist is archived, so the system it will print the dentist, and has archive is equals to true. So which means there is a archive dentist. Then if there's no archive, so it will simply print a message, no archive dentist found, and it will return. So otherwise, it will proceed to the variable dentist ID to search, and it will be checked by the method read string input. If the input is right with the method checker read string input, then there is also a variable dentist to unarchive, which will search the save the user input, and will checks it through the search dentist by ID, dentist ID to search, which is this one. Then if dentist to unarchive is equals to null, it will simply print message that the dentist with the ID to search is not found, and it will return. So it will proceed to the next conditional statement that if there's no dentist to unarchive, which is archived, so the system it will also print a message, but a different message, which it says that the dentist is already an archive, is already active, and it will return. Then if there's no all of the if conditional statement result to false, then it will proceed to the dentist to an archive, and it will set archive which is equals to false to the dentist to become an archive. So it will lastly it will print the message that will successfully the dentist is an archive and is now active. So that's all for the unarchived dentist method.
Print archived clients table, Shinari Hiyo is going to present. Print registered clients, Shinari Hiyo is going to present.
Next, I will explain the print archive clients table method. First, the system print a message printing archive clients to inform the user that the program will display the archive client record. After that, it print a archive client label to show that the table will be shown. Second, the program creates a table formatting using system.out.print line. This format defines the width and alignment of the column so that the data such as client ID, name, address, and contact number will appear organized and easy to read. Then the system print the table header and separator lines. This line helps structure the table and show the column titles clearly. That the program declares a boolean variable called has archived and it's set to false. This variable is used to check whether there are archive clients in the system. Then the program loops through the client list using for each loop. Inside the loop, it checks the client is archived using client is archived. Then if the condition is true, meaning the client is archived, and the system prints the client ID, name, address, and contact number. The variable has archived is then set to true to indicate that at least one archive client exists. Finally, the loop finishes, the system checks the value of has archive. If it's still false, the program displays a message saying that no archive clients were found in the system. The method then prints the closing line of the table to complete the display. Next, I will explain the print registered clients. First, the system prints message registered clients to let the user know that it will display all the registered clients record. Next, the program uses a for each loop to go through the list of all clients stored in the system clients. This method provides a simple quick list of all registered clients without showing additional details like address or contact number. It's mainly used when the user needs to select a client for an action like updating, archiving, and adding information.
Print registered and active clients, Jamil Rustria is going to present.
The print registered and active clients method is used to display a list of all active clients in the system. It starts by printing this registered active clients, and the method uses a for each loop to go through every client in the system. Inside this loop, there is a check to see if a client is archived or not. The code only prints the information if the client is currently active. If a client is not archived, their client ID and name are displayed on the screen. This ensures that the system only shows active records and hides anyone who has been removed or archived from the list.
Print clients table, Jillian Tabangana is going to present.
Next method called print client table. So this method prints all registered clients in a table format. First, it shows a message that the client table is being printed and prints the table title. Then it sets a column format for client ID, name, address, contact number, and the status, and prints the table header with the line for the style. It goes through the client list, and for each client, it prints their details and show active if the client is archived or not archived. If there are no clients, it shows a message saying none are registered. And finally, it prints a closing line to finish the table, making it easy for the user to see all the information neatly.
Search clients by ID that has a parameter of string client ID to search, Axel Remojo is going to present.
This method traverses the client list to search for a client with a specific ID, and if found, it returns the client object, and otherwise, it returns null, meaning that the ID doesn't exist in our list. So first, our search client by ID method accepts string value for client ID to search. And then next, we have here a enhanced for loop that traverses to our client list. And then inside our for loop, we have here an if statement And as you can see, we used our custom equal ignore case to compare the client ID to the string value client ID to search. And if they match, it will return the client object. And if not, it will return none.
Manage transactions, Jewel Segundo is going to present.
Greetings again. For the managed transactions, it uses a loop so you can perform multiple tasks without the program closing. So when you type a number, the switch statement reads your choice and directs the program to the correct action like creating or viewing record. So if you enter a number that isn't on the list, it simply tells you the choice is invalid and asks you to try again until you choose to exit. That's all.
Print transaction module menu, Jillian Tabangana is going to present.
And for the next method called print transaction module menu. So this method prints the menu for the transaction module. So when the user use manage transaction from the main menu, this method runs and shows all transaction related options. So it shows the title, transaction module menu, and the options, which are the create new transaction, view all transaction history, view transaction by specific entity, view transaction by specific client, and back to menu. So this makes it easier for the user to see all the available action they can perform. Thank you.
Create transaction, Renzo Tolentino is going to present. Create transaction item entry, Renzo Tolentino is going to present. Select
The create transaction method is used to create and add new transactions to the CMS. Inside this method, we have different validation first before we can create and add the actual transactions inside this CMS. So first, we need to check if there are active dentists using this has active dentist method. This method returns a boolean value, and if return false, the system will display a message and will automatically stop the execution of this method. Next, we have to check if there are active clients using this has active clients method, and it also returns a boolean value. And if return false, the system will display a message and will automatically stop the execution of the code. But if this tool method returns true, the system will print the list of registered and active clients using this print registered and active clients method. After printing the list, the system will ask the user to select an ID to search. This input will then be validated using this read string input method, and if the input is valid, it will be then stored into this client ID to search variable. Next, we have this client to create transaction variable, and we also have called this search client by ID method, and it accepts one parameter, the ID to search, or the ID of the client to search. So this method search for the client using the ID coming from the input that is stored inside this client ID to search variable. So if there are clients that is searched, it will be then stored into this client to create transaction or variable. Next, we will need to check if the client to create transaction value is equals to none, meaning that there are no registered client with the ID to search. So if this condition is true, the system will display a message and will automatically stop the execution of the code. But if this returns to false, it will then check if the client to create transaction variable is archived using this isArchive method. And if this condition is true, it will then print a message and will automatically stop the execution of the code. But if all of these validations are valid, we will have this first item variable, and we will call this create transaction item entry method that will display the list of services that is offered by the dental clinic. So next, using this create transaction item entry method, we will identify what service the client wants to avail, and we will store it inside this first item variable. So next, we will check if the first item variable is equals to none, meaning that the client do not want to avail any service anymore, and it will print a display message and will automatically stop the execution of this code. So if this condition returns to false, we will create the actual transaction of the client. And after creating the new transaction, we will ask the user if they want to add another service. And if the user chooses Y or yes, it will create or call this create transaction item entry, which repeats the process of adding a new service to its transaction until the client do not want to add another service. And if the client chooses no, the transactions is added to the transactions list and will print a display message. And after printing a display message, it will print the receipt of the current transaction. So the create transaction item entry method is used to identify the specific service the user or the client wants to avail. And this method returns a transaction item object. So first, inside this method, there is a service to perform variable that stores the selected service of the client, which is identified using the select service method. After identifying the selected service to perform of the client, the system will print the capable dentist to perform the selected service of the client using this print capable dentist method. And after printing those dentists that are capable of doing the service, the system will select or ask the user to select the ID of the doctor they want to perform the service. And after selecting that ID, that input will be validated using this read string input method. And after validating the input, it will be then stored inside this dentist to search variable. This variable is used to search a dentist with this ID using this search dentist by ID method. So after searching the dentist, it will be then stored into this selected dentist variable. So next, we will need to check if the selected dentist value is equals to null. So meaning the selected dentist or the search dentist is not existing inside the CMS. So if this condition returns to true, the system will display a message and will automatically stop the execution of the code and return a null value. And if this condition return false, it will then check the selected dentist if it is archived using this as isArchive method. If this condition is true, the system will display a message and automatically stop the execution of the code and return a null value. So if this condition return false, it will then check if the selected dentist can perform the selected service using this can perform method. And this method returns a boolean value. And if this condition return false, meaning that the selected dentist cannot perform the selected service of the client, it will then display a message and will automatically stop the execution of the code and return a null value. Next, we have this quantity variable which represents the quantity of or the number of tooth being performed with. So next we will need to check if this service is per tooth, meaning that the charge or the cost of service is per tooth. So if this condition returns true, the system will ask the user to enter the number of teeth it will be performed. And this method or this input is validated using this read integer input method. And after validating this input, it will be stored inside this quantity variable. And after those validations, a new transaction item is created, and it will be and the execution will stop and return a new transaction item object.
And select service, Jamil Rustria is going to present.
The select service method allows the user to choose a specific dental service from the system. It starts by looping through the list of available services and printing them on the screen. For each service, the system displays a number, the name of the service, and the price in pesos. The code also checks if the service is charged per tooth and adds that detail to the display if necessary. To handle the user's choice, the method uses a custom input function that limits the selection to the valid range of numbers, which is in this case is 1 to available services that size. This prevents the user from entering an invalid service number. Once a valid number is selected, the method calculates the correct index and returns the chosen service object to be used in other parts of the program.
Print capable dentist that has a parameter of service to perform, Renzo Tolentino is going to present.
The print capable dentist methods is used to print all the capable dentists that can perform a specific service, and this method accepts one parameter, a service object. So inside this method, it have a list of dentists that is called capable dentists. Its value is all the dentists that can perform or qualified to perform a single service or a specific service, and it is identified using this get qualified dentist method. So next, we need to check if the capable dentist list is empty using this is empty method. So, and if this condition returns to true, the system will print a display message and will automatically stop the execution of the code. But if this condition returns false, it will then loop this capable dentist list and check if the current dentist being checked is archived using this is archive method. And if this condition return false, the system will print the information of the current dentist, like such as its employee ID using this get employee method and its name using this get name method.
Print all transaction cards, John Michael Achico is going to present.
So for the method print all transaction cards, so I created this method to display our data in a professional card format. So it starts with the message which printing transaction history and the all record transactions for the users to know that it printing the transaction history and the recorded transactions. So it starts also with the conditional statements that checks if the transaction list is empty. So if there's nothing to show, it messages the users that there is no transactions in the system yet. Then it exits the method with the return um, word. And then if there's a transaction, then it will go to the for loop, which is the transactions. And for each one, it prints a header with the ID, date, and the client name to list the specific work done. And then with the double grand total, which is equals to 0, to compute the grand total in the next nested for loop. So for the nested for loop, um, every transaction item from that specific visit inside this loop, it checks if a service is per tooth to adjust the quantity label and calculates the um, the subtotal of the or the grand total of the price. And finally, it uses a format printf to align the column perfectly showing the service name and the dentist who performed the task and the um, subtotal of uh, the service. And then the ending will be with a clear grand total for the entire transactions. So that's all for the method print all transaction cards.
View transaction of dentist. Axel Remo is going to present.
Discussing the view transaction of dentist method. So this method allows the user to view details of transactions performed by a dentist. So first we have here a line that prints viewing transactions by specific dentist, and then next we're gonna be printing the list of our registered dentists. And then next we have here a string called employee ID to search, and we're gonna be set its value using our read string input method. And then next we have here a dentist object that is called dentist to view transaction, and we're going to be setting its value using the search dentist by ID method. And inside the parameter of this method, we're going to be putting the employee ID to search. Then next, we have here a if statement that checks if the dentist to view transaction is equals to null. It will print that the employee doesn't exist in our system, and it will says to please select from the given registered dentist, and it will return. So it will not proceed to the other block of codes. And if our dentist to view transaction is not equals to null, it will proceed to this line of codes. So first we have here a list dentist history, and we're going to be setting its value to the dentist to view the transaction that get services rendered. And then next, we're going to be checking the dentist history using an if statement. So this if statement has a condition that if the dentist history is equal to null, or the dentist history that is empty, it will print that no transactions found for this dentist, and it will return. And then next, if the dentist history has a value and it is not empty, it will gonna be proceed to this block of code. So we have here a list called unique transactions. So this list stores transaction object. And then next we have here a for loop that traverses to the transaction items. And then inside we have here a if statement that checks if the unique transactions contains the parent transaction, and if it doesn't contain, it will add the parent transaction to the unique transactions list. And then next we have here the code for printing the group transactions using our enhanced for loop. So inside our enhanced for loop, we have here a double called transaction total payment that is set to 0. And then next we're going to be printing the informations such as the transaction ID, the date, the client, and the doctor that provided the service. And then next we have here a for loop that calculates the items and that is performed in the transaction. Then we are using a enhanced for loop here that traverses to the transactions item. And then inside we have here a if statement that only print and calculate the items performed by this specific dentist. And then next we're gonna be printing the rest of the informations such as the total payment and the commission earned by the dentist.
View transaction of clients. Renzo Tolentino is going to present.
The view transaction of client method is used to view all the transactions for a specific client. So first, inside this method, we have this, or we call this print registered clients method, which prints all the list of registered clients inside the CMS. Next, the system will ask the user to select a client ID, and this input will be validated using this read string input method. And after validating this input, it will be stored into this client ID to search variable that is used to search for a specific client inside the CMS. So next we have this client to search variable and this search client by ID method, which search a specific client using this client ID to search variable. And after searching a specific client, its value is stored inside this client to search variable. Next, we need to check if the client to search value is equals to null, and if this and if its value is equals to null, meaning there are no clients match with the ID of this client ID to search variable. And if this condition is true, the system will display a message and will automatically stop the execution of this method. Next, if the client to search value is not equals to null, the method will print all the transaction history and its details for a specific transaction. Next, we have this list of transaction object, and its value is identified using this get transaction history method, which returns the client's transaction history. Next, we will need to check if the client's transaction value is equals to null, or if its value is not equals to null, we need to check if the client's transactions list is empty using this is empty method. If either of these two conditions returns true, the system will display a message and will automatically stop the execution of this code. So if these two conditions is both false, then a for loop will run and display the details of each transaction the client have. So first, inside the for loop, the transaction ID will be displayed using this get transaction ID method, the formatted date, the client's name, and the services availed, that is displayed using also a for loop. So inside the inner loop, we have this grand total variable that will be updated every iteration, and its value is always added using this get subtotal method of each transaction item. Next, there is a quantity string variable, which value is coming from this ternary operator. It first check if the service cost is calculated per tooth. If this condition is true, then the quantity of teeth being performed is displayed. Next, it will print the service name plus the quantity string that is identified earlier, the dentist name, and the subtotal of a specific transaction item. Next, after the for loop, it will print the grand total or the total cost of the current transaction of the client. And this loop will continue until it reaches the end of this transactions list.
Has active dentist and has active clients, Jillian Tabangana is going to present.
And for the two methods, which is has active dentist and has active client, so these two methods is to check if there are at least one active dentist or client in the system. They go through the dentist or client list one by one. If they find at least one item that is not archived, the method returns true. If none are active, it returns false. So these helper methods are useful for deciding if the program should allow certain actions, like showing a table or creating a transaction, only when there are active dentists or clients.
So for read string input that has a parameter of string prompt and return type of string, Axel Remojo is going to present.
About the read string input method. So this method forces the user to enter a non-empty string. So first, our read string input method accepts string value for the prompt. And inside our method, we have here a string called input, and it is set to a empty string. And then next, we have here a while loop. So this while loop has a condition that checks if the input is empty. And if it is true, it will perform this block of code. And then the first one, we will gonna be printing the prompt in the console, and then next we will gonna be setting the value of the input using our custom trim. And inside our custom trim, we're gonna be putting our scan.next line, and then we have here an if statement. So this if statement checks if our input is empty. So if our input is empty, it will print an error to the user. And if our input is not empty, it will proceed to this line of code. So this line of code returns the input value.
For read integer input and has a parameter of string prompt and has a return type of int, Renzo Tolentino is going to present. Read integer input that has a parameter of string prompt, int min, int max, and has a return type of int, Renzo Tolentino is going to present.
The read integer input method is used to validate or identify if an input is an integer. So this method returns an int value and accepts a string parameter. So inside this method, we have an input variable that is set to 1 for that will be used for validation later on. Next, we also have a valid variable that is set to false at first. Next, we have a while loop here that runs every time the valid variable is equals to false. So next, inside the while loop, we have this out statement that prints whatever the value of the prompt parameter is. Next, the if else block checks if the input of the user has next int using this has next int variable. So if this condition is true, the input will be having a value of the scan.next int method, which gets the input of the user, and it will also change the value of valid variable to true, and else if the scan that has next int method returns false, it will create another string called invalid input, and its value will be set to scan that next method, which gets the value of the input the user enters, and it will then print a display message. And after printing the display message, it will repeat the loop until the valid variable become true, and after the loop ends, it will return the input value and will stop the execution of the method. The read integer input method, the one that is method overloaded with 3 parameters. which accept a string and two integer variables. So the content of this method is same as the first read integer input method. It also have a input variable that is set to -1 and the boolean valid variable that is set to false. The while loop also runs every time the valid variable is false. It also prints the value of the prompt parameter, and if it also checks if the input of the user has next int using this method, and if that condition returns true, it will store the value of this scan.nextInt method into this input variable. Then it will check if the input is greater than or equals to minimum parameter, and if the input is less than or equals to the max parameter. So if this condition is true, then the valid variable will be also become true, and it will end the while loop. But if this condition return false or is false, it will then print a display message and will continue to execute the while loop. Next, if the scan that has next int condition return false, it will create a string variable called invalid input, and it will store the value of the scan.next method, which is the value of the input of that user. Then it will print a display message and will continue to execute or repeat the while loop. So if the valid variable becomes true, the while loop is stopped, and after stopping the while loop, this method will be stopped immediately because of this return statement, and it will return the value of this input variable.
Read double input that has a parameter of string prompt, double min, double max, and has a return type of double. Axel Remojo is going to present.
About the read double input method. So this method forces the user to enter a double within a specific range. First, our read double input method accepts string value for the prompt and double value for the min and max. And then inside our method, we have here a double called input, and it is set to -1. And then next we have here a boolean called valid, and it is set to false. And then we have here a while loop that has a condition is not valid. So if the condition is met, it will perform this block of code. So the first one is we have here a system.out.print, and we're gonna be printing the prompt in the console. And then next we have here an if statement. So this if statement checks if the scan variable has a double inside it. And then if it is true, we're gonna be setting the uh, input to that value. And then next we have here an if statement. So this if statement checks if our input is greater than or equals to the minimum value, and it will also check if the input is less than or equal to the max value. And if that condition is met, it will set the valid variable to true. And then uh, otherwise, it will print an error to the uh, user. And if our first if statement is met, it will also return the input. And we have here an else statement that if the if condition is not met, it will store the scan value to the invalid input, and then it will print that the input is not valid.
Read optional double inputs that has a parameter of string prompt, double current value, double min, double max, and has a return type of double. John Michael Achico is going to present.
It has a parameter which is a string prompt, double current value, double min, and the double max. So here I initialize the variable double input, which is equals to the current value, and the boolean valid, which is equals to false. So this method uses a while loop, which is this one, that keeps running as long as the valid is false, forcing the user to provide the correct answer before moving on. So inside the system shows the current value, so which has the prompt. Um, so the user knows what's already saved in the current value. Then if they just hit enter, or if they enter the current value, it will return the current value. Then this makes the update optional. If they do something, the try catch block will be kicks in. It tries to return the text into a number. If the input is a number, it will go to the number format exception A, which is an error that str input is not a valid number. Then otherwise, um, it will go to the um, checking if the input is greater than or equal to the mean and the input is less than or equals to the max, and the value will be equal to true. Then if it is not, so it will show an error message that says, please enter a number between the minimum and the maximum And after that, it will return the input. So that's all for the read optional double input method.
Read yes, no input that has a parameter of string prompt and has a return type of boolean, I, James Peralta, is going to present. Now greetings for the read yes, no input helper method. We have here a if else statement that uses a custom equals ignore case and checks the input if the yes or the input is y, same and the no and n. And we have here a error message that prompts that notifies the user that the only valid answer is yes or no. So custom equals ignore case that has a parameter of string str1, string str2, and has a return type of boolean, Geo Lawrence Pere is going to present. For custom to lowercase that has a parameter of char c and has a return type of char, Geo Lawrence Pere is going to present.
Greetings. This method, custom to lowercase, is a helper function that converts a single character to lowercase without using Java's built-in to lowercase method. The idea here is to rely on ASCII values. In ASCII, uppercase letters range from A to Z, which corresponds to the value 65 to 90, while lowercase start at 97. The difference between an uppercase and its lowercase version is 32. So first, the method checks if the character falls within the uppercase letter range, meaning it's between A and Z. If it is, the method adds 32 to the character's ASCII values and then casts it back to a char. This effectively converts the uppercase letter to its lowercase equivalent. If the number is not an uppercase letter, for example, if it's already lowercase, a number, or a symbol, the method simply returns it as is. So that is our custom to lowercase method. So greetings. This method, custom equals ignore case, is a helper function that compares two strings without considering letter case, similar to Java's built-in equals ignore case, but implemented manually. First, the method checks if the two strings have the same length. If the lengths are different, then they can't be equal. So the method immediately returns false. Next, the method uses a for loop to compare the strings character by character. For each position, it retrieves one character from str1 and one from str2. The first comparison checks if the characters are exactly the same, including case. If they are, the loop simply continues to the next character. If they're not exactly the same, the method then checks if they might be the same letter but in different cases. To do this, both characters are manually converted to lowercase using the custom to lowercase method, which relies on ASCII values instead of built-in functions. After converting both characters to lowercase, the method compares them again. If they still don't match, that means the strings are not equal. So the method returns false. If the loop finishes without finding any mismatched characters, the method returns true, meaning both strings are equal regardless of case. So that is our custom equals ignore case.
Custom trim that has a parameter of string str and has a return type of string, Axel Remojo is going to present.
So, greetings, Sir Janus. I am Axel Tirimo, and for our project, I am assigned to do the custom tree method. So, this method removes any leading and trailing spaces in a string, and then it also behaves just like the built-in tree method. So, this method accepts string as its parameter, and then next we have here inside we have here a while loop. So this while loop finds the first non-space character from the left, and then we use this to detect the spaces. And then we have here another while loop. So this while loop finds the first non-space character from the right. And then next we have here an if statement. So if the string was all spaces, we will gonna be returning an empty string. And then next, if um, the input or the string has a character, we manually build the new string from start and using this for loop. And then next, it returns the string result.
And for initialize available services and has a return type of void, I, James Peralta, is going to present. Greetings, Sir Janus. For the for the method of initialize available services, we just using the service class, we just create a new instance of the services that are going to be available in the clinics. So we have here a dummy data of fillings, checkup and cleaning, teeth whitening, and tooth extraction. By using this method, it will add it in the available service list that is on top. Wait, so it's searching here. Once it's added there, it can be shown that it's available in the service. And by doing this, the clinic can also expand their services by simply adding a particular service in this method. So let's try that. Batch transactions, create new transaction. Let's say with 2026-004. As you can see, the available services as of now is here. So that's all for the initialize available service. Thank you. And initialize dummy data that has a return type of void, Jamel Rustria is going to present.
The initialize dummy data method is used to populate the system with sample records for testing. It begins by retrieving the list of available services such as fillings, checkups, whitening, and extractions. The method then creates several dentist objects with specific details like names, addresses, and commission rates. Some dentists are assigned extra skills, and one record is set as archive to test the system's filtering logic. After setting up the dentist, the method creates a list of client objects with their contact information. Just like the dentist, some clients are marked as active while others are archived. Finally, the code creates several transaction records. These connect specific clients to dentists and the services they perform.
Greetings, Sir Janus. My name is James Ranzer T. Peralta, and I'm here to introduce the creator and the and the one who's going to explain our UML. For the creator of our UML, Gio Lawrence Perey made it, and the one assigned to explain is Axel Rebojo. Thank you, Sir Janus.
So our diagram shows the structure of our system, including the classes, their attributes, methods, and the relationships between them. So the goal of our system is to manage clients, dentists, services, and transactions in a dental clinic. So for the main classes of our system, we have here the main class, the person class, the client class, the dentist class, the service class, transaction class, and the transaction item class. So let's start with our main class. So our main class acts as the controller of our entire system. And our main class has the attributes of scan, choice, the list of our available services, the list of our dentists, the list of our clients, and the list of our transactions. And for the method of our main class, we have here the print main menu, the manage dentists, the manage clients, the manage transactions, the initialize available services, and the initialize validate. So these methods are responsible for printing the menu and then managing the records and initializing the system data. Let's go to our person class. So our person class is a parent class and it has attributes that are shared by both client and dentist class. So our person class has uh, the attributes string name, string address, string contact number, and boolean is archive. And it has a constructor that accepts string value for name, string value for address, string value for contact number. So let's go to our client class. So our client class represents the patients in our dental clinic. And our client class inherits from the person class, meaning it automatically receives the attributes name, address, and contact number. And additionally, we put additional attributes such as the client ID, the transaction history, the client ID tracker, and the current year. And for our constructor, it receives string value for name, string value for address, and string value for contact number. And then for the methods of our client class, we have here the transaction method, which receives transaction as its parameter. Then next is we have here the get transaction history. So it returns the list of the transactions in our client. And then next we have here the toString method. So the class stores all transactions made by the patient, and the client can have a multiple transactions, which is shown by the one-to-many relationships with the transaction class. And then let's move to our dentist class. Our dentist class also inherits from our person class, and our dentist class represents the doctors or the dentists that perform services in our dental clinic. And it has attributes such as string for employee ID, double for commission rate, list for services offered, and then list for services rendered, and in for employee ID tracker. And for its constructor, it receives string value for name, string value for address, string value for contact number, double value for commission rate, and service for the dentist specialization. And then for the methods of our dentist class, we have here the add scheme, which receives service as its parameter. And then next we have here the can perform method, which receives service as its parameter and returns boolean. And then next is the add rendered service, which accepts transaction item as its parameter. And then next is the get services rendered, which returns the list of the transaction item of the dentist. And lastly, we have here the toString method of our dentist. So our dentist class manages the skills of the dentist and the services they perform. So each dentist can perform multiple services, which creates a relationship between dentist and services. And then let's move to our service class. Our service class represents the dental services offered by the clinic. So examples are tooth extraction, cleaning, and filing. And for the attributes of our service class, we have here string service name, double service price, boolean is equal to, and list qualified dentists. And for the constructor of our service class, it receives string value for service name, double value for service price, and boolean value for is equal to. And then next we have here the methods in our service class. First is we have the add qualified dentists that receives dentist as its parameter. And then next we have here the get qualified dentists, and it returns the list of the dentists that are qualified for uh, performing that specific service. And lastly, we have here the calculate costs, and it receives an integer value of number of two, and it returns a double value. And then next, let's go to our transaction class. Our transaction class represents a client receipt or a dental procedure record. So our transaction class has the attributes of string transaction ID, object client, list of transaction items, local date time, transaction date, and integer transaction ID tracker. And for the constructor of our transaction class, it receives object client and object transaction item. And for the methods of our transaction class, we have here the get transaction items, which returns the list of the transaction item. And then next, we have here the get formatted date, and it returns a string value. And then next, we have here the add transaction item, which receives object transaction item as its parameter. And lastly, we have here the print invoice method. A transaction belongs to a single client, but a client can have multiple transactions. And this class also contains the transaction items forming a composition relationship. And then next, let's proceed to the last class in our system, which is the transaction item class. So the transaction item class represents an individual service inside a transaction, and it has the attributes of string transaction item ID, object service, object dentist, and integer quantity. Next is the transaction object and the integer transaction item ID tracker. And for the constructor of our transaction item, it receives the object service, object dentist, and the integer quantity. And next we have here the methods of our transaction item class. The first is the get subtotal method, which returns a return value. Next is the print transaction item method, and the set parent transaction method, which accepts object transaction as its parameter. And then next we have here the get parent transaction method, which returns object transaction. And then each transaction can contain multiple transaction items, and each items represents one specific dental services performed by a dentist. And then next, let's start the discussion of the relationships in the diagram. First, we have here the inheritance relationship. So the client class and the dentist class inherits from the person class. So this avoids duplicating common attributes like name and address. Next, we have here the aggregation relationship. So the main class aggregates the classes dentist, client, services, and transactions. So this means that the system manages these objects but does not own their life cycle completely. Then next we have here the composition relationship. So the client class has a composition relationship with the transaction item. And this means a transaction owns its transaction items. And if a transaction is deleted, its item are also deleted. And lastly, we have here the association relationship. So the association relationship is present to the dentists and the services it performed. So next, we have here the service and doctors or the dentists. And next is the client and their transactions.